Hi, this is Ken. We're at OPASTCO Summer Convention 2010. We're with Doug Meredith of JSI. Doug brought up 8 points about the National Broadband Plan that I think the audience really resonated with the audience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those points?
Yeah, these are points that really are my observations on what the broadband plan is, and the big ones, the big ticket ones are the 401 standard really doesn't work, and it doesn't have a really robust evaluation of how they created that standard. The 401 standard is not going to deliver the applications in 2020 that the urban areas of the country are going to have, and so we're going to, you heard about the digital divide, this particular proposal will likely exacerbate that divide. Then the second item, the very, very big ticket item, is the issue of this cap. The 2010 cap is, when you read it in the plan, it's based on a premise that the contribution, we can't add more burden to the customer, and that fails in two ways. First of all, it fails in the fact that the Act actually says that urban areas and rural areas should be reasonably comparable in service. So when you artificially establish a 2010 cap, it creates a situation or some incentives that are not good. But more importantly, that 2010 cap fails to recognize that contributors or providers of broadband and users of broadband should also contribute to the programs. And that greatly expands the contribution base if you think of it that way. The FCC apparently doesn't think of it that way right now, because Carol Maddie was suggesting that it comes out of one pocket and goes into another. But I think that fails to recognize the value proposition that if you have a FiOS network in Maryland, for example, and you're paying a contribution charge on your phone service, you could easily pay a contribution charge on your value-added, whatever broadband speed she might have at her house, and actually increase the contribution base. So we have some work, we have some education to do on the contribution factor, trying to get the FCC to understand, if they don't, to get them to understand that particular principle. But even then, I think it's probably, we have to elevate the discussion a little bit more, because they're telling everybody that Congress is saying that there's no more money, and so we actually have to educate Congress, saying if you're really interested in broadband for rural America, that you're going to need to make an investment in rural America.
Yeah, and it was a significant number of homes, up to 30 million you'd suggested, that could be part of this divide.
Exactly. The plan anticipates, under the natural evolution, that they're going to have 100 million homes, household units, that will have 100 megabits per second by 2020. There are 130 million household units in the country, and so that leaves 30 million household units kind of in the lurch, essentially on the sidelines, because the application providers are going to be writing applications that use that 100 megabit speed. It's just a natural course of the software evolution that we're going to see in 10 years.
Yeah, and the other thing is the actual costs. One of the leaders of association, I suppose, raised a very interesting point about, well, that's $24 billion to serve 8 million homes or so, versus to get to 100 megabits. The FCC is saying 320 billion, and he's saying, well, maybe that 320 billion is much, much less.
Yes, actually, the Fiber to the House Council has a study that shows that it's their particular study is a little bit less than that, actually considerably less, in the $80 billion range. And if you think of, okay, we have an $80 billion problem, but we have a long period of time to solve that problem, and we can leverage. The FCC, the federal government doesn't have to buy all of that. They could leverage, and then you amortize that over time. It seems like it might be a laudable goal. We've been told today that this is an initial architectural design plan rather than a blueprint, and so there are opportunities to tell the architects to change the design.
Yeah, and that seemed like the most important message I got out of it, is it's very important to get that input in.
Yes, without a doubt, at every level, at the state level, at the federal, at the regulatory level, and most particularly at the congressional level, because we need to get those concepts ingrained into the new Congress, because this is going to all happen next year, so that they understand that it will be an investment, but an investment that will pay large dividends in the future. And
as Keith Oliver pointed out, a lot of those programs may already be in place.
Yes, a lot of the programs, my particular position is, the rural carrier programs right now for rate of return carriers are delivering broadband to rural America. So there's no reason to throw the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. Essentially, keep those programs. Admittedly, we need to tweak them, we need to adjust them so that they're more broadband-centric, but that does not throw away the core program. And then we go to the RBOC areas where the problem exists. The broadband plan says that 50% of the people that are unserved in rural America are served by broadband, are served by RBOCs. Well, the RBOCs for years, under price cap regulation, have had no incentive to go invest in their rural areas. And so we need to change that particular program before we start with rate of return carriers.
Well, super, Doug. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, very much.